Hi. I love the awkwardness
Hello.
of you hit click record. It's like, oh crap, now I have to say
Yeah,
something.
the whole vibe changes
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
weird.
But
Okay, so please introduce yourself.
all right. So I don't know how much you want me to introduce myself because I know we're going to go a bit more into my background. But my name is Marvilla Mousa. I previously attended Community College for about 2 years. And then I ended up going into a psych degree with Point Loma Nazarene University. So I ended up going there. And then I graduated in the year of 2020 on the out, like maybe 2021, the first semester I finished. So that's a little bit about me in terms of my education. In regards to like my pursuit in psychology, I ended up taking a psychology class with Professor Weiner. I had initially started with being an English major. I felt like it was something that was, really drawing me. And even when I was younger, it was something I was always good at, essentially. And so I kind of just wanted to stick to the status quo in a sense. And like what you're good at is what you continue on with. But when I took a class with Professor Weiner, I started to really realize that I really enjoyed learning about people and the way they interact in different institutions and how the world interacts with other people and how they kind of influence us. And that's just kind of the social aspect of psychology. And then also the neuropsych, the physio psych, I really delved a lot into as well. And I just thought it was fascinating. I grasped it really well. So just that passion alone really, you know, helped me going to the point where I ended up even finishing my degree in developmental psychology is what I was really prominent about in Point Loma. So after completing my degree, I it was around like probably the worst time ever because jobs were really scarce and people weren't really working during this time, so there was a huge pause in the workforce, and so I started to pick up a job. It was as a behavioral technician or behavioral therapist. So I worked with children who had autism. I worked with them for about a year, and because I was going into developmental science, I wanted to really focus on the adolescents because that was really where I was going with that. But after working with them for a year, I really felt like I could, I enjoyed what I did. It was very, very fulfilling in a sense of I was helping people, but the demographic, I kind of grew out of it. I grew out of working with the kids in this specific sense. And I knew I wanted to be a professor. That was the initial thing that I wanted to do, and then teach developmental psych. And then I started to kind of look into, okay, what is it like to be a professor? How does the tenure work? And, how long does it take? And there's so many different factors that influence it, and a lot of research that goes into it as well. It's something I wasn't particularly fond of. I'm not obsessed with doing a lot of research. So I wanted to kind of stick to what I actually enjoyed. That's always been something important for me. It's like not necessarily, the financial part of it or whether or not like the prestige would be important. It was always whether or not I was going to enjoy my job. And I'm aware that you're never going to fully enjoy it, but it was something that was really important to me to at least have that foundation. And so after I started working with them, I picked up a job at night while working with the children. And I worked as an executive assistant at Lumi Rooftop. It's a restaurant on Fifth Avenue in downtown. I started off as a hostess, and as soon as I started to really progress in my position, I ended up getting into the executive assistant role. So I managed the books and the reservations and all of our high profile clients for 4 venues, because that's how many venues this company RMD group had. So I focused on hospitality, and I started to really enjoy working with this demographic. Yes, it might be different, but psychology did have a lot to play with how you deal with customers, especially the customers that are in a situation where they're not getting their table right away. Or, I mean, there's no more like you can't deal with a more angry customer if they haven't been fed. Like it's just hangry. They're expecting a really elite dining experience, and these people are obviously people who have a little bit more of a criteria that you have to meet. And this restaurant is by no means like a fast food chain. It's a very, very prominent restaurant. Our chef is a Michelin star chef. They expect a lot out of you. And so, because of that, you need to kind of bend and weave. It's a very fast paced environment for sure. I was, even as a hostess, I felt like I was constantly being pulled in directions that I never thought I was going to be. That's with management, with customers, looking at the reservations. I was the lead hostess, so I was also managing my peers and just like host is saying, if you ever worked in a restaurant, you know that it's something that you can't do your job unless all the other pieces kind of work together. And because of that, I was constantly going out of my way to make sure the servers were serving at the time they need to serve, were the busters busting the tables the time that I need them to do. So it was a lot. I worked there for about a year and a half, and then I finally, just about 6 months ago, I quit. And the reason had nothing to do with the job itself. It had nothing to do with my lack of enjoyment or anything of that nature. It was because of my executive assistant position later on. I got my foot in the door with HR, and I got to kind of see how psychology worked in an institutional way. So kind of like an organizational psychology aspect of it all. And how do employees and how do managers kind of connect with each other? How can we actively pursue happiness in our workplaces? So I started to actually really get fulfillment through that. There was a lot of employees that we had that didn't speak English, that were immigrants that didn't have a lot of papers and stuff, and so they were going through a lot of things with their paychecks that I was responsible for communicating with them and kind of being the messenger to the HR team because of my position. They felt that they could come to me and things of that nature. I heard a lot of like grievances from a lot of our employees because of where I worked. I was so close to all of our employees because I had been a hostess, that I actually hear a lot more than, let's say, any other assistant would have heard because I was once them. And so when I moved up, I had that connection with a lot of our employees and stuff. So it really gave me a sense of fulfillment to really help my peers in the best way that I could, but also being so close knit with the managers and the CEOs of the company and the investors. It gave me a lot of understanding of what it looks like to be in a restaurant industry and just any industry that has employees and then upper management. So after that, I decided to look for jobs in HR. I applied I applied everywhere. I think I sent out 25 or more applications. I was not being frugal with it. I was sending out applications left and right, trying to see if I could get a position in HR assistance or kind of really focus in HR,
So
because I was doing a
what is
lot
the
for
application?
HR.
What is it like? So it's 25 applications. So what is it? Because I know what the applications look like for here, but what is it typically? What do you
Mhm.
have to put in?
It really just honestly depended on the institution itself, but most of them were in educational institutions because I had like the most experience in education because of the fact that not only did I work as an therapist, but I also worked at QMACA as a tutor and then a front desk. I also tutored children on the side. So I had a lot of like education related background. So I felt like that was something I could really get my foot in the door with. They all were pretty much similar in a sense of what they were looking for, which was a lot of experience. They were looking for someone who had a lot of experience, who was really had their foot in the door already and was able to kind of just take on the role. And what was sad about most of the places that I was applying for is that they were like aggressively overwhelmed with all of the things they needed to do. And so when they were looking to hire somebody, they were looking to hire someone that they didn't necessarily have to train from A to Z. They wanted to meet them at like G or something, like kind of already get their foot in the door. They want you to be at G, and it's like an assistant like HR position that like didn't pay like a crazy level amount or things of that nature. So it was discouraging for me for sure. And I continued to work at Lumi during that time because I didn't want to quit my job before I actively found another position. But while I was working with Lumi, same thing with our HR team. They were, dropping, and they didn't have the funds or like the means to actually replace them. So what they would do, because I was the executive assistant, is to actually allocate more responsibilities to me, and that's kind of where I felt that sense of like, okay, if I don't get out now, then I'm going to have a position, like all the things that are part of that position, but I'm never going to get the title. I'm never going to get the pay for it. And so it became very discouraging. And then I started to realize that you can be taken advantage of, even in my area and in my position with all that I knew or I thought I knew, you could definitely easily be taken advantage of. And then it started to rile me up, right? Like I saw other coworkers of mine, doing certain things and like, either getting away with certain things because it was harder to replace them, or not getting away with things and like doing the absolute most they could possibly do in their position, but never receiving any type of recognition. Training was very scarce. And people would be working in their serving positions, let's say for a year and a half, but be promised that they would get like a promotion within the first 6 months. And so it was a lot of scarcity in terms of like being promoted, getting raises. I saw a lot of things happen with like paychecks that were very strange, for lack of a better word. And so it started to really fire me up. And I saw that HR is a very, very good position to have, but only if your HR team and HR has like they have the power to actually make a difference. And that's when I started to think a lot about the HR team that we had. They didn't necessarily have that power because of the fact that they were in a private company. And so they don't have anybody above them that you can go to if you ever needed something or need help, kind of like how in institutions like educational ones. I feel like you guys have something above them. What is it called? It's like a board,
Yeah,
um,
governing board and everything
a
that,
governing board.
yeah, and then we also have the chancellor's office, and then so
Yes,
yeah, so the HR works with the district, and then so
yes,
the district oversees. But what the benefit is that everything in a public institution has to be public, and
mm-hmm. Yeah,
all the records are public records. And so whenever we do it, that's why they need so much training for HR.
mm-hmm.
We're going to talk to later in this class. We're going to talk to one of the an IO psychologist who does HR work, and
Yeah,
the and that's and that it is a real position because of its accountability. But in the private, you just have to not get sued. That's the
exactly. And
and that's
they get away with a lot more. And so a lot of the times that I was working at Lumi Rooftop or just under RMD Group in general, I was never the type of person where I was comfortable with where I was at, because I knew it wasn't something I wanted to do long term, regardless of how much promotions they were able to even give me in the first place, even though that wasn't even an option. I started to think, for a long time, and I was like, okay, so I know now that the demographic that I'm willing to work with is employees. I'm really comfortable with employees. I'm really comfortable in like a business setting. I really enjoy all the attributes and the moving pieces of a business. I really enjoy working with employees. And I was even reading a book recently by Marcus, I think Buckingham. It's called Love and Work. And I watched a seminar that he had. It was a live seminar, and he was talking about kind of different ways that you can help employees really enjoy their work and do it in an intrinsically valuable way. And it was very inspiring. He even has a quiz on his website to kind of help you understand what kind of worker are you, and like what are your values, and how can you use your values in your work ethic, and how can they, become a natural marriage of whatever you want to do. And so the more I started to read about, let's say, organizational psychology and things of that nature and employment, the more I became engulfed by it, and how like wonderful it is to actually have people in these areas that, study psychology, that know others, and know how they should work. And I started to think a lot about it. And I was like, you know what? Like HR is cool, but they don't have enough power for me. And it's like something that I'd have to go back to school for. And it's like, okay, now I had to start really weighing out my options. Like, okay, do I do 2 years in a master's program, complete it in HR, and then go get out and then do HR? It's definitely a possibility. The problem is that I knew some people that had completed their HR degrees and they completed with their masters and still couldn't find jobs. It's very impacted. And so I wanted something that was niche, but not niche enough to where I'm stuck in this area to where I can't. I was like really traumatized by my interview like experience, and like the experience of applying to so many places. It's discouraging, nobody wants to hear no. And I understand like you can hear no only so many times before you hear your first yes. But after a certain time, I was like, maybe I should go back and really see what I really, really want, and then actively work towards it in an educational way. And so leading up to where I am now, I quit my job. I had a car. So I did a very drastic change. So I was like paying my car payment. I was like driving back and forth to downtown, which is like a 30-minute drive from me. So that was kind of the biggest expense that I had. And then I was working. And so because I became so engulfed with this new stage of my life and I wanted to change it so badly, and the trauma that I experienced in the interview process, it led me to give back my car. So I literally have no car. And it led me to actually
Had a
quit my
nice
job
car.
completely.
Don't just say you had
And
a
I had a
car.
nice car. I
A
had a
very
nice
nice car.
car. I had a very
Okay.
nice car. I had a BMW. It was a very beautiful car. I shed a tear the day that I went back for sure. It was very sad for me. But, everything in life comes with sacrifice. And the car was the biggest sacrifice, in my opinion, because it was my safe haven. You can go anywhere. It just makes you feel free when you have your own car. But I sacrificed it. The reason why was because Lumi was taking up a lot of my time, my energy, and it was becoming more and more discouraging to work there while I had something else I wanted to do, which was studying law. And so a lot of people might be like, whoa, like where did you go from like this to law? But actually, law is very similar to psychology in a sense of that it is an umbrella, right? So I can study law. So I give myself the opportunity to really study all the things that I like to learn about, which is like all the factors that go on. The law is one of the most, besides psychology, of course, is one of the most important things to know. And I started to realize that while I was working at Lumi when I saw the grievances and the things that kind of disturbed me during like that time, because you see things that like you're like, okay, this is illegal, this isn't morally right, and that they're only getting away with it because it's a private company and nobody can say anything else. And so because of that, it started to really like light a fire in me because I do have that very like everyone should be equal approach. Everyone should, have their rights approach to life and things of that nature. So I really pursued law. And so now I'm studying for my LSAT. That's where the sacrifice came for everything else. I wanted to focus on my LSAT, take the exam, and then give myself the opportunity to go to law school. And while in law school, I'll be able to learn about everything, kind of like psychology, where you learn about all the different sectors and all the different disciplines that go into psychology: positive psychology, moral psychology, physio, research, statistical psychology. I learn all about the law aspect of it. And then by the end of it, I would be able to really, really focus. And a big motivation for me to move into law was because there was an opportunity there for employment law. Everybody has employees in some way or another. And so it was something that was really special to me to think about. It was like, okay, I can actually help these employees and I can really help them in a sense of, you know, in a law sense. Like I can take these employees that have been wronged by their companies to court and I can actually fight for their rights and I can actually make a difference. It's not like, oh, this employee comes to me and has a grievance, and depending on where I'm at, can I really do anything about it, or does the investors have me in their pocket? I don't like to have that approach. It's just kind of how the HR team in this area worked. You can give them a grievance, but realistically, they're not going to do anything about it because they're in the investors' pockets, which is crazy because this is something you see like in a movie, but that's real life. And it's like, I was very naive before starting to become like in the real world. And it's very, very, it's shell shock. It's a slap in the face for sure. But in those instances, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to, be a part of the problem, or are you going to be a part of the solution? And I'm more of the solution type of person. So it really, yeah, it ruffled my feathers, like really. And I was like, all right, like when I come back, I like thought to myself, like when I come back to this institution that I worked for, like you will face my wrath. Like it was have that kind of like vendetta almost, because I was like, I don't like what's going on here and I know it's wrong. And so like I'm gonna educate myself. I'm gonna work as hard as I possibly can and do something for the people that have actually been wrong. Because we do spend over a third of our lives working. And to sacrifice that much time, you spend more time with your coworkers than your family. You spend more time with your managers than your family. So you're going to spend that much time with these people that have so much too much power over you. It's just unfair to me. It's ridiculous. And if I can do something about it, then I will. And so that's where I'm at.
I know, well, and that's what I was talking. Full disclosure, her mom works at school with me, so I see her periodically, and I get Marvilla updates. What's your daughter
Yeah.
doing? And I think we were on an interview committee. Dogs, hey, quit it. As soon as I start talking to someone, they'll just start barking at each other. but
Yeah.
were we on the interview committee together, or was it? Do you remember?
Um, we no, we were not. It was another. It was at the Grossmont Union District, and they had. I went through.
No, no. I mean,
Uh,
your mom. Your mom said, "Oh, she's
oh
finally going. She's moved back in and is now going to law school." That's what your mom said.
yeah, yes,
And
yes,
I was so excited to hear the little journey that you just did, because it is law and psych are really close together, because
exactly.
a lot of the aspects that make what law works or what law is psychology. And
Mm-hmm.
especially dealing with people and dealing with the arguments and your kind of search for, I guess justice is the right word, or truth.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes,
I think that's kind of the thing that we do in psych, is we kind of brainwash you into look for the scientific evidence and the real things, not for the bias. And so
exactly.
I really like that. Okay. So I've been going through the questions as you've been talking here.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and so what's kind of interesting is you've answered a lot of the people's questions.
Amazing.
So like there a lot of them are like, um, let's see, someone with a psycher who doesn't work in psychology, what their job is, and how they were, how did going to school for psych make you able to prepare for this LSAT? How did going through the program in psych make you, what skills did you get out of being a psych that's going to make you pass the LSAT?
Exactly what you
Hard.
just
It's
said.
just a lot.
Yeah. It's a lot of information. Psychology is a lot of information, especially like the fact that you go through so many different aspects of it. There's physio, but I think that research in psych was very valuable to me, even though I feel like I didn't appreciate it as much as I could have taking the
Nobody ever.
course. No one ever does, and it's like, in the classroom you don't like realize how, like when I was sitting in the classroom I was like, oh my gosh, like can we learn about kids again, like can I learn about like neuro, something else, like math, like it was like my biggest nightmare, right? But I enjoyed aspects of it for sure, because I could see the value in it in the moment, but you never know what you have until it's gone. And so when I fully left the psych, not psych world, but I like graduated, if you have like an article, and you're reading an article that's like randomly on Google, and you don't look at the peer review, that's a huge aspect. It's like you don't even know what you're reading and what lies they're possibly feeding you, because of who's peer reviewing this. And there's a lot of questions actually in not necessarily the LSAT, or actually yeah, in the LSAT in particular, that ask you questions and related to these kind of things, and like finding bias, and understanding like what words actually mean and how they're being used, which is a lot of you could say sociology, or like just in psychology, why is the argument, why does it sound this way, why is it being used in this way, and like what is the author trying to convey in this message.
Right.
And you have to really think out of the box, because the whole point of the LSAT is to trick you. I'm not learning about law right in this moment, but what they're doing is they're trying to prime me. They're trying to actively work against me in the LSAT, to see if I'm able to really find the bias. Am I able to really find this argument? Am I able to piece things together, and structure them properly to really understand what they're asking of me? They have some very interesting questions on the LSAT, and psychology is a huge part of it. You need to be able to, I mean, psychology is a lot of it, it's reading and understanding and comprehension. These are basics, but really analyzing is a
Yeah.
huge part of psychology. And it's a perfect marriage for the LSAT. Before I even decided fully to take it, I did my research and I looked it up. I said, like, okay, so who are the type of people that are more like likely to go into law? And psychology students were actually a big part of it. I thought I needed to go into like journalism or politics prior to actually moving in that direction. But when I looked it up, a lot of there's a lot of psychology candidates. And so it did make me feel a lot better. It's like, okay, I'm not just like an outlier in that sense. Like there's a lot of psych in it. And, just dealing with people, I can't say maybe for the LSAT, but maybe just in the future when I am actually working with clients, let's say I do marriage and family law, that's a huge part of psychology. You're going to have to understand what these people are going through, and the different grievances that they face. And people will be like winning or losing in a sense. And if you're on the losing end, god forbid, people are losing their families, their kids, their lives. And so
Yeah.
you need to be understanding of that, and really understand the impact that can make, maybe even put resources and like have them be available to them even after the case if you are truly a good lawyer and you really care about your, the people that you're working with, your clients.
One of the things you were saying when I didn't want to interrupt, your love of English.
Yes,
That's
that was a big one.
all of a sudden I can see why that fed into you, because it's like it's your love of the doing English stuff. Um, that's huge. My wife is trying to
Yeah,
get in touch with me here for a second. Nobody can let me go.
yeah. And it's also
Oh,
enjoyable, like if
my
anybody
wife
decides,
just got in a car accident. Oh, so I'm gonna have to end
yeah,
our little talk. So I apologize, but
no, I apologize. I'm so sorry
you
about that. Is she okay?
she's fine. But anyway, so I'm gonna call her back.
Yeah.
And I'll stop the recording, and then if I contact me in just a minute. Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Not a touch screen here.